With all the big calls on all the big races, it's time for another What a Shout, brought to you by the Racing Post and our sponsors Bet365. Dave Orton, a rather excited version, back with you on the Friday before the Cheltenham Festival. Of course, there's a small matter of weekend races. Are you one of those people that just wraps yourself up in cotton wool? Or do you like to try and get ahead over the weekend with the Imperial Cup? Bonus hunters on the show again. Wow, what a show we've got coming up for you this weekend. Whether you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. That's the crack there on Facebook or indeed anything Twitter. It's hashtag What a Shout. Now, who have we got coming up for you? Thrilled to say that joining me for his What a Shout debut on the panel, into the office. I didn't think I'd be saying this at any time last year. Chris Cook.
Hey Dave, thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you in, Chris. You've found your way into London.
Yeah.
For the first time
really
since
had to
lockdown?
Fight my way into London.
It's busy again out there, isn't it?
Man, I thought people were working from home. I thought it was just us that could actually go work
Well,
in
all the
offices
kidlings
and
have gone
places.
back to school now, so the
that's what
trains
it
are
is.
busy again, and so
Yeah,
that was a bit of a shock to the system.
Roads were mad.
And the new office for you.
Yeah, it's really grand. I feel like I've joined a prosperous company. I say walking around here today, it's a very impressive place.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, Chris, it's great to have you on board. It's a big signing for us, and it's really, you just wanted to come on What a Shout, right? I mean, that's...
It was like nearly the first thing I said when I had the interview. How do I get into that studio? Where is that? How can I get sat next to Dave picking losers? And
it was quite a
showing myself up.
smooth in as well, wasn't it? We've had guests that have come over the last year, and they've gone all over the place, but... You can tell the manner of the man, he was straight in. And what is it exactly that you're going to be doing for us, Chris?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be finding some news stories, hopefully, for the paper. But my main focus is starting the week after the Cheltenham Festival. I'm going to be working on something called the Front Runner. It's going to be a morning newsletter for subscribers to the online Racing Post. It's hopefully going to give them some news, going to put them in the picture about everything that's happening in the world of racing. Get some winning tips in there, hopefully. It'll be a sort of a Monday to Friday. Great way to start your day if you're a horse racing fan, so that you feel fully up to speed and you're not going to miss anything. Yeah,
current racing reporter of the year from the HWPA.
Oh, that's true. Yes, thank you for reminding me.
And of course, you got that in December with no crowds, none of us throwing beer at you and all that sort of thing as usual.
I did miss that, I must say.
Please, God, we'll be there again next December. December, of course.
It'd be nice. That'd be nice to think. But there's been so many stages in this thing where you think, well, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. And slightly keeps moving away from you, but hopefully we're getting there.
But if anyone doesn't know, you're quite a keen punter as well, and a tipster as well. You just managed to get in there. How's the portfolio looking?
I gone a little bit quiet. I waded in a couple of times, sort of bravely in October, November, and like almost immediately the plans were stated to be some other race, or there was an injury, and that slightly discouraged me for the time being. So I thought maybe I'll just keep my powder dry, as they say.
And this week, if you can remember what's running next week, we will forgive you, because it must have been a bit of a crazy week. You've been like a boy, who's joining a new school.
It's been a whirl. I mean, it's on one level, it's so exciting to join the trade paper right before the Cheltenham Festival. This is like what you dream of as a kid if you're into racing. But yeah, there's a lot of new tech to learn, and I haven't swapped jobs for 15 years. And the way this week is gone, I won't be doing it for another 15 years if I can help it. There's a lot to learn. So.
And when you tried to get in the lift without buttons earlier, the gold card, that did blow his mind.
Oh man, you made me feel like an old man. New technology baffles aging hack. What else is new?
Well, listen, let's go to the older statesman of the party. You could probably hear him in the background from our sponsors, Bet365. Pat Cooney back on board.
Yes, good to be back, and nice to have Chris on the show.
Now, usually, Pat, we do a segment, as regular viewers will know, called Racing Clues, but we're unashamedly Cheltenham pretty much. We've got a big guest coming along any minute now for you. Mighty guest, I might call him as well. But there was a small matter. We've got to touch on the new national favourite, Chris, haven't we? Cloth Cap. My goodness.
I mean, that was a huge run, wasn't it? And he's straight into like 6-1 across the board. I'm not even sure if he's that now. I mean, that would be short enough in the day. I'm sure I can remember Grand Nationals when it was like sort of 9-10 to win the field on the morning of the race. But I mean, he fully deserves to be in that position, because on the ratings, you're assuming that the other horses have run to something like their form. But I mean, he should not have been able to do what he did with the ease that he did.
Yeah, Kelso last weekend, obviously, in the Premier listed chase, he could have gone to the Grimthorpe, couldn't he, off his handicap mark, but he was against superior horses at the weights. It was easy enough to back, he blew them away. The last horse I can remember like this, he strikes you a bit of comply or die, doesn't he? Or Tiger Roll, of course, after the cross country. These horses tend to win.
They can do. I mean, what you can rely on is that they will be right up at the top of the market after a performance like that. So I mean, like, you know, anyone who took the 16-1 cloth cap that was even available Saturday morning,
happy days,
jolly well done. And you know, I mean, that's half the game, isn't it? Because for the next 2 months up to the Grand National, you're living the dream. You're thinking, you know, I'm so clever, I've beaten everyone else to the punch on this. And, you know, then obviously if you unseats at the first, that's a pity. But, you know, you've had 2 months of joy versus 10 minutes of pain.
And it is wonderful to be talking about Aintree again. I know we're on the eve of Cheltenham, but having missed the meeting last year, it's a pleasure to have it back, right? And we might even have owners back on track. Who knows what else, you know? Yeah,
it's a proper thrill. It's like a lot of people, it was one of the races that was key for me getting into horse racing in the first place, you know.
Well, we might just have seen the winner last weekend. Pat Cooney, let's bring you in then. It was a steamer then for the National.
Yeah, and the funny thing was when the weights came out, he was the most backed horse that day as well. So I'm sure most of our bookmaking colleagues have also got him as high in their liabilities even before Kelso. But the way he won, he had a talented field in Bother a long way out, I thought. You know, the likes of Ace, so a horse you'd think, well, he'd be able to travel on the bridle. He was out of his comfort zone very early in the race. So he's got that, £10 in hand. So the form book says yes. He jumps well, he travels well. Good ground, I think, is paramount to his chances. So unless it comes up heavy, I really think he's got a very solid look. And of course, Tiger went off at 4-1. And he was doing it in the cross country, and of course, he'd won the National the previous year. But this fella's got he's beaten them, in proper racing, as it were. I think he's just one of these horses, you know. I think whatever horse you end up fancying, you should have a saver on him because he looks sure to run his race. And of course, we're first 5 places. If he jumps round, I'd be amazed if he isn't in the first 5. Yeah, 6-1 initially. I'm like Chris, really think, I don't know, that seems short enough. But do you want to lay any bigger? If you were an individual, you'd probably say no. I think the ground is the key to his price, and if it's good ground, he won't be any bigger than 6, that's for sure.
Yeah, fair play. Okay, and with Trevor Hemmings as well, we might see a right bumper there. So it wasn't just about him last weekend, of course. If we bring it back to Cheltenham slightly, there was a horse that took out the Moor Battle, now a handicap, which was, popular decision, meant they got a proper field. Of course, it's maybe, I don't know whether Sandown would be too happy with that because it gives you an extra week. And the shunter took it out.
They're definitely taking some of the Imperial Cup's thunder, aren't they, with that race? And I know it wasn't entirely popular with all the trainers as well because Nicky Henderson used to like using the Moor Battle when it was in the middle of Feb.
Like a soft race with Bouvardere or something.
Exactly, although he did have a 14s on shot that got beat one year. Sort of tempered his enthusiasm.
Was it Zaynar, wasn't it?
Yeah, on rotten ground by this massive QE2. As somebody who grew up in Edinburgh, went Kelso racing a lot. It's great that people are even talking about the track, and I recommend it if you ever, when we're going back to races. Kelso's a great fun track to go to. So the shunter, impressive in the Moor Battle. That was a hot race. I hope hunters are taking note of Emmett Mullins because it's becoming clear that whenever he comes over here, he really, really means it. He had a winner at Kempton the weekend before.
Cape Gentleman, of course, and the shunter won the Greatwood. So the great question is now, Chris, where does he run?
They're obviously keeping their options open. I wouldn't like to say myself, but you would think another race like the Moor Battle, so 2 mile handicap hurdle, that would suit him pretty well. To be honest, I'm fearing that he may well have left the race behind at Kelso, but he's a tough horse. We'll
Night
find
Edition
out.
Pushed him to the line. This is right out of the Pipe handbook, isn't it? He was trained by Pipe, of course. He's in fences, hurdles as well. Let's bring Pat in. Pat, did you see any weight of money to suggest just where the shunter might be? Wherever he turns up next weekend, assuming he makes it there, he's going to be hot one.
Yeah, no, immediately after the race, of course, he's chasing that £100,000 bonus, so it's up to connections where they wanted to go. The general feeling we got, though, after the race was, he's had a hard race. He's entered in a race on a Tuesday, right through. He's probably better off waiting until the Friday to give him that extra time to recover, and that brings in the County Hurdle and the Martin Pipe. I'd be surprised if he didn't end up in one of those two. Certainly Friday would be my favourite if I had to pick a day when we see him. But I wish connections well. And full credit to Kelso that they put on a good show there. And hopefully the Moor Battle has really put its mark on in the calendar going forward.
So it looks like the shunter may just be waiting a little bit, as long as he possibly can, for the county. Will you be on? Let us know. Are you one of those punters that wraps up in cotton wool, or are you really excited for the weekend? If you are, the man we're about to bring in will give you lots of answers, hopefully, on what's coming up. Right then, This week's big guest, all he is, down in West Sussex, Siswood Stables. Gary Moore joins us on the show. Gary, great to have you on.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Friday morning. You're known as being a man of few words in interviews and that, Gary. I'm going to try and tease a little bit more out of you this time. I mean, we could start talking about your career, Gary. Of course, you were known as was it over 200 jumps winners you had or something like that? You took over from your father, Charlie, didn't you? In the 90s, I think it was. Our database only goes back to 2000. So let's get up on the screen without further ado the best horses by Racing Post ratings that you've trained. And with Cheltenham on the horizon, it would be remiss not to talk about Cider Gruhy, Gary.
Yeah, it would be. It'd be very rude not to talk about Cider Gruhy because he's very special in my life, and he still is a very special person around the place. What he did was unbelievable, and I wish I could find another one like him.
Well, we're hoping you've probably got one in the yard like him as well. Obviously, it's a family business down there, Gary, isn't it? You've just happened to sire the greatest flat jockey of our generation, that's for sure. But two great jump jockeys as well. And Hayley flying with her media career, and she's a Bet365 ambassador, which kind of helps, doesn't it? How's everything down there? Everyone all right?
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah.
Happy days. All right. So look, we've got some big runners coming up this weekend. We've got the favourite for the Imperial Cup. We've got some massive runners next week, of course, likes of Botox Haas in the Coral Cup. There's been a big gamble on that. But really, all you want to hear about is this chap.
With the Cheltenham Festival upon us, I'm back at my family's yard to continue this extraordinary story about Goshen and his connections and the rollercoaster year they've had.
Hardest year for a horse in jumping is his 4-year-old season, 4/5.
Goshen better today, back in third.
Shouting at the TV, my wife sort of looked at me as if, what's that all about?
Goshen now sent to the front. On the bend towards home, Goshen has dropped out quickly there.
With Goshen, it's a testament to him how well he does know him by bringing him back to what he did at Wincanton.
Racing down towards the final hurdle, it's Goshen is cruising to victory.
If you wrote a film about it, you'd say it was far-fetched, wouldn't you?
Just pinching myself.
It's horrible.
It was dreadful. I can picture it now as he just sort of flew through the air and...
He's gone head first into the ground.
I knew I'd broke my back and I knew I'd broke my sternum.
Never been through pain like him when I went to see him in the hospital,
They said you'd be okay again. I knew I was always going to come back and ride.
But I think Goshen's the reason he's probably come back. Right, Jamie?
Yeah, happy
I hope so.
His father's stable style, perhaps with a bit to prove now after Haydock.
But I still think he ran good at Goodwood.
Can Goshen fight back? Hyanna's got into second.
Turns out he wasn't beaten by a bad horse.
It wasn't about that day, really. I wasn't displeased with that run at all.
Hyanna's second. Goshen better today, back in third.
Ooh, steady. And then Cheltenham came along and that was just a mess.
He felt okay, he felt good. We were very hopeful.
Goshen is just being chased along there back in fourth.
I said as they got to the top of the hill, although he was still in contention, I think he's done.
And mid-race, nothing was really happening. I was trying to make things happen.
Here is the final flight.
It was one of them runs when you just think it's too bad to be true.
Goshen has dropped away quickly. On the bend towards home, Goshen has dropped out quickly there.
And as it found out, it was.
Sometimes these things are meant to be. We've learnt a lot from it.
Changed his whole routine. It was almost like the start of the season.
Dad would be telling me to sprint him from one part of the gallop to another, and he was doing lots of variations and funny little things.
Just played around with him, basically, You can go off piece with him and ride him around the countryside. He doesn't get wound up or anything like that. He's just got a fantastic mind, which is important for me in a horse.
In his magic way, your dad works unbelievably well with him, and the snippets that I got from Gary and the information that I got from Gary said that we thought that he was somewhere near his best. Jamie similarly doesn't really say an awful lot, but when I was up here he said, he will work really well, we need to get him on the track.
A couple of days before that, Andy pulled my arms out and just really like the old Goshen. He was nearly uncontrollable.
Goshen has now claimed the lead on the run back towards home. Goshen in front now.
Halfway round, I was slightly concerned. It wasn't until he jumped the third last.
Two from the end. Goshen is up and over, safely clear.
When he turned into straight, he took off again.
The one thing Goshen likes to do is just run.
Racing down towards the final hurdle, it's Goshen is out in front and clears it safely, but he's back. Goshen an easy winner.
For me, that was the old Goshen. I rode him out on the Monday morning. You wouldn't have thought he'd had a race, how fresh and well he was.
Jamie always said to me, he got numerous texts and WhatsApp from him, kept saying to me, believe, believe. And I said, I do, and I always have done.
I'll be quite honest, I never even thought I'd have a run in a champion hurdle, It'd be high on your list, wouldn't it?
We're lucky that we've got a horse that is hopefully capable. It's not going to be easy. I know it'd mean a hell of a lot for Dad to win it.
It's all about the 16th of March.
Yeah.
His birthday, actually, that is.
Is it really?
It's the horse's birthday, yeah.
It gives me slight goosebumps
Yeah,
thinking
it's incredible, isn't it?
So, fantastic piece there, Bet365. Hats off, absolutely brilliant stuff. Gary, I guess the question is, how is he?
Yeah, he's in great order. He scored this morning. He went up there like Easter Brack, which pleased me. So there's not much more to do now, I couldn't be more pleased with him. He's in a great place.
We've got to talk about last year, Gary, because I don't know, a lot of people were knocking him sort of going into the Triumph, when he jumps this way. Does he want to go that way? What ground is he? But that was a jaw-dropping moment, wasn't it? Prior to what we know happened at the last hurdle. Now, after that, you've had COVID hit. I mean, ordinarily, you would have tried to have another couple of big meetings to try and get over that. That must have been a summer of discontent, mustn't it?
Yeah, it was very much so. Yeah, because obviously my next. Where do we go after Cheltenham? And it was Liverpool, and it never happened. So we just let the horse down then, give him a break, and then I never got him fit enough to come back for his first run over on the flat, if I'll be honest with you,
Was that what it was? Because he was, obviously the expectation, the weight of expectation coming back was, it was a lot for the horse, wasn't it? And 2 odds-on defeats. We'll get to the one at Goodwood a little bit later on. But and then of course he went to Cheltenham in the International behind Song for Someone. We thought he might have had an issue with his heart. You later thought that might not be the case. He had a big point to prove, didn't he, when he went up against that rival, in the Kingwell?
He did, yeah. But we didn't see the right Goshen at Cheltenham, but we saw the proper Goshen at Wing Canyon, So he did put it right. I've got a lot of respect for Song for Someone, but I think he underachieved at Wing Canyon. He shouldn't be beaten as far as we beat him and as easy as we beat him. I don't think he was on his A game that day. I'll be honest with you.
Well, no, that's fair enough, Gary. He was beaten 22 lengths by Goshen. And it was either the heavy ground or it was the track for the favourite that day. But he did come there with his chance. And we had Tom Simmons, the trainer of Song for Someone, on the show that weekend. And later on that weekend, Tom sent us a message saying, I think we kind of ran our race. Bring Chris Cook in here. On Racing Post ratings, Song for Someone got a 160 when he won at Cheltenham, saw off Silver Streak. We rate him as £8 below that. But we've got to do that, haven't we? He was 22. What does that make Goshen otherwise if he's run his race?
Well, potentially Goshen's a monster, isn't he, on a performance like that? And I'm so pleased for Gary and everybody that he's bounced back and he's able to show that ability we were seeing last year. You couldn't be sure yet how good he is. And then this is only 3 weeks and 3 days later. That's the issue.
Yeah, and how are we feeling about the champion hurdle for him? He's into 4-1 now with Bet365. Is there a case for that going down, or is there something that's stopping that price from crashing?
Well, the thing that's in my mind, and I wonder how Gary feels about it, is he's got to give half a stone in weight to last year's winner. How does Gary feel about that happening to his 5-year-old? It doesn't seem fair to me, I must say.
Well, let's get it from the trainer himself. Gary, that £7 allowance, is that worrying you?
Obviously, it always worries me weight. It's a great factor, but you can't do nothing about it. We all know the fillies mare's allowance, so good luck to them for having a mare. That's the one benefit you do get. But if he's as good as everyone thinks he is, then it shouldn't be too much of a problem, really. But We're now on Tuesday.
Oh, fantastic. Absolutely. I'll tell you what, I'm getting excited about it. I looked at Epatant's win last year. I have gone very lukewarm on it. I think it's Honeysuckle to beat personally. Gary, let's talk about the weather. Now, you've always said that this horse wants a bit of cut. It looks like it's drying up. He's by authorised, isn't he? And I looked into authorised stats. And obviously he's a very good sire. He's got strike rates on good to soft, yielding, in the mid-teens. And then you look at his strike rate with his jumpers on good to firm. It jumps up to 25%. Is that something that concerns you at all, the weather?
It would have concerned me had he not run at Cheltenham last year on what was reasonably good to soft ground. I can't see him allowing it to be any worse than good to soft. The water table level for me in this part of the world is very high at the moment. So, like Fontwell the other day, I know there's no comparison to Fontwell and Cheltenham, but Fontwell the other day, we declared on good ground, and it was heavy by the last race. So that's how quick he can turn, And I think it's in the interest of Cheltenham to make sure they don't let the ground be any worse than good and on the slow side of good. And that's what it was last year in the trial. And the rest of it, he proved himself equally as good on that as what he is on soft ground.
If you look at the horse's career, when he made his flat handicap debut, talking about making a mockery of an open handicap, it was at Brighton on good ground, of course, Chris. But Cheltenham and Simon Clace, in the back of their mind, probably now to the very forefront, despite the winter we've had, they're not going to let it be on the far side of good, are they?
I mean, I was starting to wonder if Simon would be getting out the watering can, but then I was in Cheltenham this morning, and let me tell you, it was absolutely tipping down, which would be music to Gary's ears. And I think there's a bit more of that due tonight. You could easily see it going, soft in places. Maybe even a bit more than that. And also, I don't think Cheltenham dries out quite like it used to. We sort of got it into our heads over the years that it's an amazing place for draining. But the last couple of seasons, it doesn't seem to take the rain all that well. So I think for the first day that we're racing, it'll probably be fine for Goshen this round.
2 meetings this winter abandoned, of course, at Cheltenham. Yeah. Unbelievable, isn't it? Pat Cooney, champion hurdle then. Honeysuckle looking like a hot favourite, of course, with that £7 allowance. Last year's winner, Epatant, not even favourite, but hot on the heels is Goshen.
Goshen, yeah, and the public do love this horse. He was a huge gamble in the Triumph Hurdle a year ago, and he was been back in business, isn't he, at Wincanton? He was hugely impressive then, and he has been the best back horse really at prices since Wincanton. Honeysuckle, again, you look at the ground, don't you? Honeysuckle, her best form is on testing ground. Epatante on better.
Okay, that then is the champion hurdle. Unbelievable preview. I think we can just say that we've given you there. What else have we got coming up on the show? Right, we're going to look at all the big 4 races from the Cheltenham Festival for you. We'll then be, of course, looking at a small matter of what's coming this weekend, Imperial Cup. There's a decent EBF final as well. We'll be giving you the big calls and, of course, the weekend winners. If you'd like to sign up to our sponsors Bet365 pre-festival, when doing so, we've got a referral code for you. Just when joining, type in SHOUT365, minimum £5 deposit for 100 bet credits. Terms and conditions apply. Okay then, and just before we give you a preview of the champion chase, we're hearing on What a Shout this morning that Energumene is out of the Arkle. Unbelievable scenes, but a spectacle of what would have been one of the greatest Arkles in recent years. Of course, all Mankind connections will be thinking, hang on a minute about that. But Shishkin's price, I mean, crashed down, just wins now, doesn't he?
I would think so. I mean, I would probably have been with Shishkin anyway, but it's a great way to start a festival, isn't it, with a clash like that between the sort of really high-profile horses in England and Ireland. It's a pity to lose a horse like that. Yeah, because he was just a winning machine, wasn't he? Phil for Team Mullins out there. Let's though preview the champion chase for you, and again, another absolute hot pot in Chacun Pour Soir. Let's go to Gary Moore about this. You've won this race, Gary. If Cider Gruy, at his pomp was raining up against this chap, would you be worried about him? He looks the real deal, doesn't he? I think I'd be very worried about him. Yeah. He just listening to Mr. Mullins the other night on television. I think he said what a machine he is. Put the kettle on's no mug either. It's first flow hasn't done nothing wrong, has he? So they're all there with a chance.
it's going to be a good race.
I tell you what, he's got the specs on for this, so we're absolutely. That's the first time I've ever seen that. So a studious thing. So look, Shaka Soir, does he win, or is there? Oh, I like Put the Kettle On actually as an each way alternative. She's unbeaten at Cheltenham. She's got her ground.
And getting the Mayor's allowance again. And
there we are.
And she was, so much better last year than I was really expecting. So you've got to bear that in mind. These course winners come back, and again, Shaka Soir hasn't done it there. But I mean, from the first time I saw him when he cuffed Effie de Soy at Punchestown, you just think, this thing is an absolute monster. And I mean, there's a sense of the trainer trying to keep him together. He doesn't run that many times, and there's not just a sort of Mullins factor like with Album Photo. This is the plan. Well, that seems to work, so we'll only run him so many times. I think he would run more often if it was possible. But he was impressive again the last day, and I think he's the one to beat.
After that news about Energamine, they'll be really worried about this chap now, won't they? It's just the sort of thing that makes them shake a little bit. It was a stone bruise, of course, on the day last year, which is a bit freaky to happen. So Shaka Soir, followed by...
Newbie Negra, I'd be worried about.
Interesting.
I mean, I'd be really worried about that and the performance he put in the other day. The only thing, again, you've got in your mind is that he's only done it the one time.
But of course, not one at Cheltenham. He didn't go home in a Fred Winter, but he has got some place form there. So
yeah, I definitely respect him. And that yard is, just on fire this season.
And they are saying that's their best hope. So he's getting £6 from Altior. Amazing. We've not even mentioned Altior or Politolog, who last year's winner. Pat Cooney, where's all the money been? What price is Shaka Soir going to go off?
Well, he just features in pretty much every multiple day for Chasson, doesn't he? He's 4 to 5 at the moment. I could just see the public really getting behind him. Much depends on what happens to the Mullins horses on day one, of course. If he has a good day one, they'll certainly latch on to him. I'm just trying to find a flaw in him. The only one I can give you is he's not run at Cheltenham before, and he hasn't run up at such a testing hill as the Cheltenham Hill before. He tends to win his races before the last, and he wins ease down on the running. Maybe having to run uphill under pressure, maybe that might make him vulnerable to something that's running on. But to be honest with you, I've had to think long and hard about coming up with a negative about him. I'm fully expecting, with a clear round, and if he's there in good shape, I can honestly see him winning easily.
Sad news about Energamine then not making the Arkle, but Shaka Soir, he's going to make them all go in the champion chase. Right, the Thursday showpiece. Now, I have to say, we had previewed this previously when we had Gary Moore still on the show. We were recording Friday morning, and Gary's got a load of decent runners at Sandown. He was on the clock, he had to go. I can tell you that he said that the Stayers hurdle was wide open. But, unbelievably so, they are dropping like flies. Another bombshell to give you, Time Hill out of the Stayers hurdle. My goodness gracious me. Now, I'm sorry that we've got you in here, because ordinarily you'd be breaking all this news.
Oh, well, I tell you, I'm feeling a bit sad for all these news editors having to sort of rewrite the page every 5 minutes. It's and look, most especially thoughts with connections with these horses. You live the dream up to this point, and the weekend before it all goes wrong, it's a great pity.
And especially for Philip and the team, of course, down in Minehead, they had a frustrating week last year, didn't they? With the first of all, Pylon nearly did it, and. It would definitely having a break as well. Yeah. It is really, really tough, isn't it? So let's hope he comes back in one piece. And that was one of the tussles that we were looking forward to of the week, wasn't it?
Because of the race at Ascot, that sort of teed everything up nicely for another rematch.
Round 3, wasn't it? On level weights, and both had their ground and coming up. So of course we're talking Paisley Park versus Time Hill. We won't get to see that, unfortunately, in the Stayers. Before we go to Pat Cooney, does that affect your look at the race?
Well, honestly, the age is a bit of an angle for me. I mean, people tend to think of stayer hurdler types as being old horses, but actually the last 4 winners of this race, I think, were 7. You have to go way back for the last horse who was sort of aged in double figures that won the stairs. It might be the right race for a young improving type, Flooring Porter. For me, he's been a big price up to now because I think people have written off the Christmas win at Leopardstown as a bit of a tactical fluke.
It was a muddling race, wasn't it? And
no question
the
about
Elliott
it.
horses were not firing at the time, but Fury Road has since come out and given it some credence, that form, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just a young, improving horse, coming from a trainer who's really good at bringing those horses along. I don't think they're guessing. I'm sure they know what they've got. He's a championship horse, and up to now he's been a decent price. You have to see what price he is now that Time Hill is out, but I think Sarah de Burley will still be ahead of him in the betting. Sarah de Burley also 9, Paisley Park 9. I think Flooring Porter is the way to go.
Wow, interesting. Okay, Pat Cooney, let's bring you in here. I mean, I was struggling, I must admit, between who to go for. I'm a big fan of Time Hill, but I think Paisley Partner is back on the ground. I know they didn't get the prep into him, but Emma's team are absolutely flying. Emma Lavelle, he will do for me. But what sort of price is he now going to be? And does that mean some other horses might look at the race?
Well, absolutely. You'd imagine Paisley Park, he'd probably be about 2-1 now. But this race is opening up now for Roxana. She was on pace to run in the Mares Hurdle, but I'm working on the basis as the £7 Mares allowance is Gold Dust. Well, she's going to get the £7 allowance in this race, and she's got a perfectly viable form book chance. Paisley Park comes with, he comes with his issues from a year ago. If I was any part of the Roxana team, I would be looking at this Stayers Hurdle thinking, we're getting £7. We're not going to get that in the Mares Hurdle. I would be a Roxana fan from here on in, and I would believe the Skeltons would be looking at this thinking, yeah, she could win the Stayers Hurdle receiving £7 from the boys. So I'll put me in the Roxana camp from now on.
Wow, unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, we've got a Cheltenham Festival without fans, behind closed doors, no owners. You did a lovely piece for us, your opening piece at the Racing Post, where you talked about white-hot competition. Right. It never disappoints the narrative, does it?
No, I tell you, I can't wait for the racing to actually start, because there's been so much talk about it, and I think that's what's going to get everybody going. You sort of forget from one year to the next just how absorbing the actual action is, and the fact that there's not a crowd there. I mean, it's a great pity. You'd much rather we're 50 to 70,000 people each day. We're sort of able to create that atmosphere and remind everybody who's there of how important it is. But I still think the TV experience is going to be. It's going to be great. They're going to work really hard to bring that atmosphere into your homes, even though they don't have a crowd there to help them. It'll be the horses that do it. It's a pity that we're getting a couple of the big names dropping out now, but hopefully that'll be the last of it, and we'll get all these big names facing off against each other.
That's right, absolutely. So the Cheltenham Festival, it's nearing, and the Stayers Hurdle just opened wide up. Time to look at the blue ribbon then of the festival on the Friday. It is the Gold Cup. Goodness gracious me. He's going for immortality, Chris Cook. Album photo. Closely matched with A Plus Tard. But Willie Mullins, big hope, going for 3 Gold Cups. Can he do it?
Yeah, he definitely can. I mean, having done it twice, and there's nothing much wrong with the horse. How many times has he been beaten in the last 3 years? Hardly at all. His efforts against the clock are pretty useful too. The only thing wrong with him really is the price, and I tend to try and get these favourites beaten if I can. I think A Plus Tard would be the one that appeals more to me at the odds available. He's still young, you forget, because he's been around for a while. Won at Cheltenham a couple of years back so impressively, albeit it's a handicap. Last year in the Ryanair shorter trip, and he was plugging on pretty gamely at the end, I thought, and a real Stayers performance to run down Kenboy the last day. I think he's got more to offer at the Gold Cup distance, and plenty of pace in the race as well, so I think that might set it up quite nicely for him.
Yeah, I thought that was life starting for him in the Savills Chase as a stayer, but he has actually run over the trip as a novice after he won the novice handicap at Cheltenham, perhaps a little bit over the top there. First time tongue tie as well at Leopardstown, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, that really might have made a difference. Anyway, he sustained his effort right to the line, so you wouldn't have any sort of worries about the wind giving out on him, now that seems to be helping him, and Rachel be aboard. He's not the biggest horse, and he gets a bit low at his fences. You'd have to worry about that, I think, in a Gold Cup. If he belts one at the wrong time, then that'll be the end of it. So you might need a little bit of help from the saddle. But,
and the race might set up. You've got Native River becoming they're the first 11-year-olds since Mandarin to do it. But that 177 RPR we gave him for the Cotswold Chase, that's the best on offer this season.
Yeah, I mean, love Native River. I think it's asking a lot for him at his age to go and win another Gold Cup, and I think he's not going to have his ground, is he, this time? It looks like it'd be the typical festival experience. The ground's going to dry through the week, and it'd be riding on top, I think, by the time we get to the Gold Cup, which is not really going to help him.
What a great narrative if we saw Bryony Frost and Rachel Blackmore going hammer and tongs over the last together. Frodon, of course, and Paul Nicholls, the more he looks at the sunshine, baking down. He said it's been raining at Cheltenham, but it's going to be dry. Everything looks right. You're slightly worried about him if he can't dominate, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the King George absolutely suited him, didn't he? The way that he got a complete freebie on the front end, and Bryony judged it so nicely. This is just much more of a test of stamina. I think it's going to be a bigger field by the look of it. And he's going to be hassled, isn't he? He's going to be pushed forward at just a half a stride faster than he would really want to go at this trip, I think. And, I'd be surprised if he's finishing stronger than anything.
He does have a habit of surprising people, this horse.
Yeah, listen, it'll be a great story to write up if it happens, but I wouldn't be betting on it.
So we're both mad keen on A Plus Tard. What does Gary Moore think about the Gold Cup?
Yeah, I wouldn't be leaving camp out of it. He ran a good trial the other day, you know. Okay, I guess he's a bit relatively inexperienced compared to some of them, but you know, I just wouldn't leave in. Nicky's horses are sort of just coming back into good form as well. So it's just one that I wouldn't leave out of it, you know. But it's another crappy contest. I'd love to see Native River win for his ass, to be honest with you. But I think he's got a tough ask. 11 years old.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that was some prep, Gary, wasn't it? You know, going over 2 miles for Champ. First thing to say, it's great to see the potential. Hopefully, Manila Endo will make the race as well. We've got potentially the first 3 from last year's RSA all turning up at the meeting again. He ran an absolute blinder, Champ, didn't he? And he's been called a few names. You know, he needed every single yard in the RSA. His jumping was iffy. He's gone down to Henrietta Knights. He was straight as a die last time.
Yeah, that's right. He was. Yeah, he's worked a miracle on him, but. I just think he could be just one lurkers there, you know.
Very interesting indeed. Champ, we can't leave him out, can we? He's added real spice to the race.
Definitely not. I think he's as short as you want him to be, you know, for a horse. He's still got a bit to prove, hasn't he? But, I mean, you know, a lot of speed the last day for a Gold Cup type contender to be in the game spirit and to run as well as he did. Yeah. I wonder if the form of the RSA is all that. You know, Manila Endo and Allaho were horses that I thought were going to go on.
If Allaho wins the Ryanair, and he's just about favourite for that.
Well, different thing at that stage. But I mean, again, Allaho has been a bit disappointing for me the last couple of years. You know.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm a bit lukewarm for him. Pat Cooney, then, what sort of price are we looking about Alboom Photo going for the bid of immortality?
Well, he's 5-2, isn't he? It's hard for the public really to latch on to him, isn't he? We only see him once a year prior to Cheltenham. He's solid enough, though, and we thought they'd be a drifter last year, but he was a rock-solid favourite, and he won. I'm just sensing the result in the race. Alboom, he's had the 1 run, Champ, the 1 run. A Plus Tard seems to be the popular choice, but I keep thinking back to the Leopardstown win. You know, he was ridden by Darragh O'Keefe. You're thinking, well, why wasn't Rachel Blackmore on it? Well, she chose to ride Manila Endo that day, and he fell at the 8th or something, and he was a 5-2 chance, so he's got to be considered in the race. I just think that they're all short enough at the top end of the market. I think if you promised me soft ground on the day, I'd say Native River at 14, 16 to 1. He'll go off at single figure price. It's the sort of race I think bookmakers could just maybe get a result in, I think, this time around.
Sensing a result then in the Gold Cup, a Bet365. What a treat. Who wins it? Get your comments in below. Right then. Time for some heavyweight Cheltenham calls for you out there. And Chris Cook, this is your debut on the show. We must give you the floor. A nap, please, for the Cheltenham Festival.
A nap for the festival, and that would be A Plus Tard, I think, in the sense of, I mean, he's not a huge price, but I'm feeling pretty confident about him.
I'm mad keen on him. I am. Which should worry you.
Well, no. I feel great about it because, you know, we've got no bad experiences together. This is the first time we've agreed on the same horse as far as I know. You know?
We've done Sky together, but we've never disagreed. Up until now, there's bound to be something because there is a lay coming, I sense.
Yeah, I mean, again, that wouldn't be usually my game because when you get to the festival, you know, everything's like, you know, there's no odds-on shots that you're hardly any that you can.
Well, shall I give you a stat? This is thanks to Paul Keeley, this. The last 17 odds-on shots that ran at the Cheltenham Festival, 10 have lost. Now, there are some shorties, aren't there, this week? Your monkfishes, you like, you know, Nell Shishkins and stuff like that. So, look, it's not all plain sailing. We'll get to Pat about the liabilities and stuff in a minute. But what's the favourite you don't like?
If you have to take on one favourite, I think it would be Appreciator. You know, because I think he's a short enough price on what he's done. The ground is going to be, you know, appreciably different from what he's been doing well on. He managed to get beat when favourite at the last festival. And it's not a bad race, you know, and then there will be always a couple of horses in there that will run better than you're expecting. And then, you know, if it does all go horribly wrong and the darn things wins, you've still got 4 days to get it back. So.
Good point. So lay in the first race, absolutely. Appreciate, Pat. Appreciate it does seem to be getting knocked left, right and centre. I mean, I have to say I'm one of these that always saw the Supreme for him because I don't think he got home in the champion bubble. I think people have got him wrong. And I've looked at his sire, Jeremy, the ill-fated Jeremy, remarkable story with his hurdlers. It's all better ground. So I don't know. I think Appreciate it. If he gets a lead this time, looks like that's going to be the case if For Pleasure turns up. I like him, but you're with Chris.
Yeah, I've always been of the school, you know, where prices dictate opinions. If he was a 5-2 chance, I'd probably be with him. As we're speaking, he's about a 5-4 chance. No bargain that at all, is it? There's 27 other races at the festival. And you can't be telling me 5-4 jumps out the page at you as a bet. The times of his races aren't spectacular. His running style, okay, he's won handily enough. There's never been a wow moment about him to generate the interest at 5-4. Good opposition, Métier, Harry Fry, that's a talented horse. I just think, as I say, if your price dictates your opinion, you could only be laying this horse around about 5-4. But I do accept he's a massive horse. Race 1, day 1, he's going to feature in all the Willie Mullins multiples, and he's going to very much shape the day. But I'd have to be against him at the price, I'm afraid.
And let's flip it towards your nap then. The Pat Cooney banker of the festival.
Well, I thought a year ago that Mr. Fisher would win the Ryanair Chase this year, and I still feel that way. I think Nicky Henderson would have primed him for the race. He does look to me as though he is the ideal type for the race. Still a fair price. He won last time out. Nicky Henderson will have primed him for this. We haven't seen much of him. Not a problem. I think Mr. Fisher is a value bet in the Ryanair. I'd rather be napping him at 8-1 than appreciate it at 5-4.
Very interesting indeed. Now, we are in agreement on our nap so far. I would have A Plus Tard near the nap, but seeing as you've gone for it, I'll put him as a next best. My next best might be Mr. Fisher in the Ryanair. Really like him as well. That Peterborough Chase form just keeps coming to the fore. But I will give you 3 Stripe Life in the bumper for Denise Foster.
Wow.
I think the first 2 in the bumper can be taken on. I just do. So Gerhard started to go a little bit gloss off him, and Kilcrook, was that just too good to be true at Leopardstown last time? If it wasn't, we're all in trouble.
It's not much of an argument, Dave, is it? Really?
I don't know. It probably was. But I like 3 Stripe Life. I think interestingly, I'm very keen on him in the bumper, and there's been plenty of money for him as well. But my lay, now this is where we are going to disagree, I think, and I'll start to hide behind the camera because I can feel the venom coming from our viewers. I'm going to put up Bob Ollinger as the lay in the Ballymore. Hear the gasp from Pat Cooney. Certainties, this been called from all over the place. However, I think that if Fernie Hollow was still around, I think he'd be favourite now for the Ballymore. Of course, beat him when they first met over hurdles. And Bob, he hasn't been seen since Navan. And that race that he won, I don't think that was the real Blue Lord that we saw there that chased him home. It was very keen. And in that race was a horse called Ashdale Bob of Jesse Harrington's, who was supposed to lay it up to him. That would have been the real test for Bob in that, and he of course unseated early. So I think because now people have overreacted towards the price, and I know how keen they are on Brave Man's Game, who is a horse I'm coming round to all the time, keep looking into his form, Bob Ollinger the lay for me.
Well, good luck. You got a few horses running for you. I mean, that's the good thing about that. You're not relying on like one other horse that can.
Yeah, Bear Gillis is an interesting horse in that as well, isn't he?
I'd absolutely love it for Nicky Martin if that one would go well.
Just check out his Lingfield form. If he learns to jump properly, he could make them all go as well. So look, there are some big calls for the festival. Okay, a weekend preview for you coming up. The 150 at Sandown, the EBF final. This is one of those races every year, Chris, isn't it? Where things have been plodding around, just trying to get qualified for it. 7-1 the field. It's one of these races where even if I struggle to have a bet in it because, I just see future embryo chases in the race.
Yeah, it's not one of those races where you're going to be able to sort out a clear pecking order, is it? I think the best you can do is sort of find a horse that you actually think it's got a bit in hand on its mark and is sort of double figure price kind of thing, probably not go too close to the top of the market. The ones that have been winning and sort of showing their hand a little bit and their kind of shorter prices, those are not terribly appealing.
Who does appeal to Chris Cook?
Well, I was looking at Sam Barton. You can get 12-1. It was really promising. Emma Lavelle, Trevor Hemming's horse, got a big future one way or another. And I thought the last day at Doncaster was a big step forward in what he'd been doing, a couple of months before. I think he's just a horse who's sort of going up and up and up. I mean, probably a future chaser, but this is quite a nice looking mark for him to be starting off in handicaps.
Just about whether he handles maybe quickening ground. It's by Black Sam Bellamy. It's hard to tell really, but
well, I mean, I just thought, to be honest, the ground was soft enough for him at Donny the last day, and even the fact that they went to Donny suggested to me, because normally you get better ground there than most other tracks, suggested to me, this is a horse with some ability, and they wanted to see if he was able to express it. Yeah, I thought he was slightly sort of tripping over the soft ground that day,
okay.
and kind of winning despite it. So
the form's worked out as well. A couple of one behind, haven't they?
And when the other horse was it the Edgar Wallace came to him, he really responded quite takingly, and they spread eagled the field. I think he's a little bit lucky to be on the rating that he is after an effort like that. Yeah,
interesting. Okay, well, Gary Moore has won this with a big price runner in the past, and you've got Dorking Boy in here, Gary. Now, this is also got 22222 next to his name. However, He was supposed to have a 1 next to his name, and they voided the race at Plumpton.
Very disappointing, but there you go. It's more bad luck for the people whose horse got injured earlier in the race, you know. But I think he just about deserves his chance there. He's only been second 3 guys because he simply hasn't been good enough. But, his first run on the track was his only time he's had good ground this year. And I thought that was a good run, and that's why I think he could run a decent race tomorrow, as long as the ground isn't too testing for him, you know. They tell me the worst part of the ground is from the pond bends upwards, you know. So, you know, that won't be in his favour. But, it's a tough race. Don't make no mistakes. You know, the people have laid horses out, especially for this race. I'm just lucky that I got in it, to be quite honest.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, on a line through a horse called Annual Invictus and the favourite Mick Preston, I think Pat's going to tell us short in the market at the moment. Dorking boy, you could see it actually. Pat Cooney then, who wins the EBF final?
Well, at 7 the field, you'd need a few cracks at it. My eye is drawn to Ocean Drifter of Oliver Sherwood. He's had the 3 runs. His hurdle debut, he was second at Uttoxeter to Third Time Lucky, who most people think is a leading candidate in the county hurdle, so that form reads well. Then he's won a novice hurdle next time out, as he should have done on the book. Then he stepped up to 2.5 to win next time out. He hasn't run for 90 days. I have no idea why not. And as Gary alluded to there, maybe protecting the handicap mark, and this is his big day tomorrow. He's just got that progressive profile for me. Oliver Sherwood, good trainer. His horses, I suppose, he's had a few runners up, seconds and thirds of late. But I say you'd need a couple of cracks at this one. But a horse like him of 127, that seems reasonable to me. So Ocean Drifter for me.
EBF final then, 150 Sandown. Plots all over the place. Don't be afraid to take a price. 225 at Sandown then. Time to preview the Imperial Cup. I want to go straight to Gary Moore here. This is a real 10-year trends race, this, Gary. There are loads of things that you have to have ticks in your boxes all over the place. Now, you haven't won this. You've had a couple of places in it. The favourite hasn't won for God knows how long. However, the one horse that ticks all the boxes is Natural History.
Yeah. This is very much after he won it, Plumpton. The reason he was always to go for this race if he won it Plumpton and got in the handicap. Well, sure enough, he got in the handicap, but I didn't want him to be as high as what he is. You know, like he won the worst race in the world. It's a donkey race at Plumpton. He won, and he gets put up 16 for winning it. And the only reason he put him up 16 because he felt he let him in too early in the first place. Well, as I told Kappa the other day, the horse that beat him at Wincanton, that got stuffed out of sight at Calso last Saturday, and the other horse that beat him was the horse that probably win the first Sandown today. So how he's come to that figure, I think he just plucked it off the top of his head, sort of thing, you know.
But you are getting lots of weight from the likes of Diego de Charmel at the top, for example, and this is a horse that you paid a lot of money for off the flat. He had a top racing post rating of 107, primarily because he made Goshen look a little bit slow, giving him £3 at Goodwood.
That's right, yeah, he did, yeah, but he is a talented horse, and I hope I've been making the mistake by the reason he got beaten his first 2 hurdle races by running him on bad ground, you know. So a bit better ground in Plumpton the other day. See him win like he did. He was entitled to because the competition was very bad.
He was massively impressive that day, let's face it. That's what we thought he was capable of. Those 2 runs, in novice company. You mentioned the one at Wincanton. I spoke to Paul Nicholls about it earlier in the week, and he wasn't surprised that horse did that to you, Gary, because he loves the heavy ground. Lucky Boy, I think that was the name of the horse, and they still think that's got a big future on soft ground. Let's talk tactics, Gary, because he's a horse that obviously likes to get on with it a little bit, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, very much so. He's very easy like that. I think you can ride him any way you like, sort of thing. Obviously, we just kept it simple at Plumpton, and I think he won on the flat at Chester, making all the running. Jamie will play it by ear tomorrow on how he rides him. He just ride him as he finds him. You know, he can come from being dropped in, and he can make the running. You know, whether you want to make the running over 2 mile around Sandown, not really my bag, to be quite honest, but if there's no pace in the race, his jumping was a lot better on his own than what it was when he was dropped in a little bit, you know. That's the only other thing. He just does lack experience over hurdles. That's the only other, like in that race, you know, he's only had the three runs. Sort of. But his jumping has always been pretty good from day one.
Another trend that I should have remembered as well. You've got to have a certain amount of hurdle runs. I think it's less is better actually in this race. There looks to be, Chris Cook, a lot of pace on paper in this race. This horse actually could improve more for dropping his head a bit, couldn't he? If he gets a lead. Yeah,
you could definitely see that. I mean, I must admit, I didn't find it the most attractive betting race in the world, but I'm sort of interested in the Leoncavallo from the Pipe Yard. You know, that they always used to have such a
stranglehold on this race
record. I mean, you're going back a little bit in time. You know, some of the young boys that are looking at this race, you know, they won't even realise that was a thing ever.
Just get on Wiki, you'll see all the pipe, M pipe usually next to it, of course.
Right. And so, I mean, this is a horse that they got last summer from the Newland Yard. And, you know, I think if you were trying to improve a horse in the Newland Yard, you know, good luck to you normally. But they gave him a wind up and they've stuck a tongue tie on, and it does seem, on the evidence so far, to have helped the horse. He won quite tidily in a novice chase. I think they maybe thought at that stage, we've got a horse that might be on a decent rating if we find the right handicap hurdle.
He needs Cesarewicz, didn't they?
Yeah, that's right. He ran okay. I don't know if they were necessarily thinking of the Imperial Cup at that stage, because I've got used to the idea that this race is normally run on a bog, but it won't be this time. I think the ground will quite suit him. He might be on a nice rating.
Leoncavallo then for Chris. What about Pat Cooney?
Yeah, well, natural history is very easy to find at the top of the market, and rightly so. You look at that progressive form on the flat. He was 97 on the flat, 132 over hurdles. It all fits neatly, doesn't he? He's the horse that's got the upward curve about him. The best backed horse of the race has been Langer Dan for the Skelton team. Of course, anything the Skeltons run, there's going to be money for it. But this was an anti-pose move when we put the prices out again on Monday. And he was fourth at Market Raisin, 4th to 7. And you think, well, that's average form. Very much in the E for eye catcher section of the room, that one. Noted running on very, very strongly. It's going to be a fast run race round there. And he could be the one to pick up the pieces for me. And if you're a Langer Dan fan or thinking about him, you can rest assured you're in good company, because quite a the shrewies were on for him earlier in the week. But natural history, but the one to beat. But this has been a bookmaker's race in recent years. I think the last 10 years we've had 6 10 to 1 on bigger price winners, no favourites. So not going to be easy for natural history. I'm sure he's going to be good, both codes as well. But the money horse is Langer Dan, so I'll up with that one.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I think the favourite will win this personally. Maybe a word for Hassanabad as well for another crack. A dual purpose trainer, Ian Williams. Watched that back a week ago at Newbury. Slightly eye-catching. So, Gary, we've talked about your runners this weekend. What's your strongest chance running this weekend, Gary? Have you got a nap for us?
Agent of Fortune today at Lingfield.
If anyone's watching after Friday, Gary, you're making my job hard here. I knew it was going to come at some stage. It's all been smooth up to this point. What about high up in the air in the novice handicap chase?
Well, I think I'd love to see him win there tomorrow, because he's done so fantastically well. But there's another one where the handicapper doesn't. They've got the easiest job in the world, but they're just slinging them up as they see fit. He's won 5 races this year. 3 of them were very bad races. The last 2 he won. You'd be interested to see how the Andy Irvine horse runs tomorrow, I think, in the earlier race. And but the race at Formwell he won the other day, 3 of them didn't try in the race.
What? Well, actually, to give you a bit of credence on that, I spoke to Paul Nicholls about a Shuntor at the start of the week, and that is quietly fancy for the Grand Annual. It's fair to say he was having a comeback run.
Yeah, well, he might as well stay at home, because he's got no chance of winning the Grand Annual. But, the horses didn't try that day. Well, I'm not saying they weren't trying. They just didn't try the horses.
Well, you were the now horse, weren't you, that day? And I mean, Gary, he has been one of the big handicap success stories of the season. And if he stays the trip, he's got 2 mile 4 horses in his pedigree. I saw. He's going to go close here at a price, isn't he?
Well, I hope you're right. But I think he's got a massive task on his hands today. The only thing that will improve him is because he's going further. Because I've been running short of his distance, basically. Because I know when he goes further, he'll get better. You watched him when he won at Sandown the other day. He never got going until halfway up the running. when he started going away from that horse again. And he does really want 2.5 miles, but just because the races have suited him at 2 miles because they're bad, that's why he's been sticking to 2 miles. I think he did win over Plunks in 2.5.
Yeah, okay, excellent stuff. So that's hype in the air. Now, Gary, just before we let you go, it's been great to have you on. They'll throw more tomatoes at the screen than normal if I don't ask you about Botox Hass in the Coral Cup next week. This has presumably been the plan for some time.
Yeah, absolutely. He's in great order. I wouldn't put anybody off him. I think he's got a real chance. He's 2 for 3 on the track, and he should be 3 from 3 really. But he seems to come to his best there. When he ran his last race, it was always the plan not to run him again till Wednesday. And I'd be very fingers crossed sort of thing,
Happy days. Okay, we're not even talking about Nassalam or 50 Ball. 2 massive chances as well in the handicaps. I assume that Nassalam is going for the Boodle still, Gary?
No, he runs in the county hurdle.
Whoa!
Sorry. So yeah, Nassalam. Yeah, I think he's going to have to run in that. The owners want to run him in that, so I think with it being the earlier day, hopefully there'll be more ease in the ground then. So he'll probably have to run it. He's got tough ask in both ways. The Fred Winter is tough, and carrying 11:10 in the juvenile race isn't going to be easy either, But he's in good order as well.
Yeah, I think we're yet to see the best of him. Probably future chaser, isn't he? Time for the weekend naps. Okay, you've heard from Gary Moore and his big nap. Fantastic stuff. Chris Cook, a weekend winner, please.
Sam Barton, I think. Just bigger price than it should be.
Sam Barton, I'm a big fan of his as well. Pat Cooney?
Off to the all-weather for me. The Trill 55 at Wolverhampton, Starfighter. Should have won last time out. Unlucky loser. Did go up £3, but I think he would have won by a couple of lengths with daylight. He got stopped at the 3 furlong pole. Winner without a penalty to a degree. A bit up in class, but should have won last time out. Course and distance form. Reads well. Good, solid chance. Starfighter, Trill 55.
Nice, bringing in the Peter, of course. The all-weather season is starting to hot up. We're not too far away from All-Weather Championships Day. Big card tomorrow at Wolverhampton. I'll give you the 4:10 at Sandown, staying handicap. Look no further than Versatility for Nicky Henderson. Windop hasn't been seen since chasing home St Bart's at Newbury. Liked his effort that time. He's got his ground. Gary, it's been great to have you on. Thanks for coming on. Listen, we wish you all the luck in the world next week, not just with Goshen, but with all the runners. Thanks to Maria and, of course, Jane for helping you work out Skype down there for the first time on the stable as well. Great luck next weekend. Do you promise to come back on when it buckets down just before the Eber and Goshen's going for that?
Dream on.
Dream on. Great to have Gary Moore on the show. Well, that's all we've got time for this week's What a Shout. Gary Moore, what a superb guest. Gave us absolutely the first word on Goshen and the rest of his runners this weekend. Favourite for the Imperial Gold Cup. It's been an absolute pleasure to have, first of all, you joining the post, now making your What a Shout debut. How was it? You could be kind.
Oh, it was really good fun. Thank you. Whizzed by.
You'll be back.
Oh, if you have me, yeah,
we
definitely
will have you, Chris Cook. I'm sure the viewers will echo that. Don't forget to keep getting your questions in for the panellists and for Pat Cooney as well. And before I sign off with Pat, we're live every morning, 9 o'clock. What a Shout comes to the viewers each day of the Cheltenham Festival.
Yes, early to bed and early rise for me. So, looking forward to it all.
Absolutely brilliant. Good luck, Pat, this weekend. Good luck to all you out there. Cheltenham is not far away, but plenty of sport to enjoy in the meantime. Don't forget, safe gambling's what it's all about. Don't forget to download the must-have Racing Post app. You can do that on the App Store or the Google Play Store itself. Get your comments in, YouTube, Facebook, hashtag What a Shout. Until then, enjoy the sport.